succession planning, and performance management. She holds degrees from University of Lagos and the University of Wolverhampton. She's a certified trainer and a full member of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria. She's also a member of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria and a member of CIPD and SHRM. Beyond HR, she enjoys photography, public speaking, and volunteering for impactful causes. Please, with a virtual round of applause, join me to welcome our first speaker, Mrs. Ezinne Anosike. And secondly, I'd like to introduce our very own Dr. Ajibewa Olusegun. He has over 30 years of experience in international human resource management and is a distinguished HR leader that has cut his teeth across various industries and multiple sectors. He holds a PhD in industrial and organizational psychology, an MBA, and an alumnus of Lagos Business School and IMD Switzerland. He's an accomplished academic and he has published 9 research articles till date. He also is an active member of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria, where he has contributed to their learning platforms and study paths. He's currently retired as the group head of HR at Continental Reinsurance PLC, where he led HR operations across 6 countries. He's a founder and managing partner of Model Consulting Services Limited and a fellow of several prestigious institutes, a coach and a mentor. This is to show you that the wealth of experience we have in the room is amazing. Please join me to welcome Dr. Ajibewa Olusegun as he joins us on this HR Roundtable. I want to see your emojis. On that note, it is time to start the conversation. We understand that when someone hears learning organization, something comes to our mind. And so the other part of it is, how do you lead a learning organization? In a world where organizations need to transform themselves, they need to stay on track, they need to be actively learning and agile to stay competitive, to give the best, and also ensure that their HR strategy end to end is not put to the back seat by people who are doing better. It is on that note that we are having this conversation. Bring all the HR people around, business leaders, to come and have this conversation on how we can lead a learning organization. And to open the floor, I will just start with a very basic question. I will ask both panelists to give us their view of what they view as a learning organization and what a learning organization just means to them. So let's have your opening statements and then we'll take it from there. Please, I'd like to indicate that if you have questions, put them in the comment section. I will do as much as possible to ensure that both our panelists attend to them to the best of their ability. So I'll leave the floor open and then we'll start from Mrs. Ezinne. Mrs. Ezinne, please let us hear your thoughts on what a learning organization means to you.
Thank you very much, Pamela. And can you hear me very well? Am I
loud and clear?
Okay? Okay, thank you, fantastic. And I first must apologize for the glitch. Network really, you can do all the simulation, but when it's time to actually start the conversation, you realize that everything is just, and that's the world we are in. And that's a good starting point, you would say, because technology has come to, penetrate the workplace. So any organization that isn't learning now, really, honestly, you're on a long theme. But I would like to start from a place of, standard understanding for all of us. Because I did my postgrad and I've read a lot of scholarly articles on learning, I'm not going to go into the scholarly articles or what my learned colleagues and researchers will tell us a learning organization is. I have a very simple analogy of what I want to talk about learning and why learning is very important. And I work in an organization that is very big on learning. We're very, very big on learning. And I've seen in instances where people cut budget. The first place to go to is your learning budget. But I work for that organization where, of course, when we want to cut budget, we don't start from learning because we're huge on learning. We expend quite a large budget in our learning, growth, and development of our employees. And someone once asked me, through the years, I've been asked this question, very interesting question. That has how I defined a learning organization. Somebody once asked me, what if you spend all the money training your people and they leave? What would happen? And my immediate, I didn't even have to think twice to respond. And my immediate response at the time was, what if I don't spend the money training them and they stay? So this logic is what informs how I drive learning in my organization, because I might decide to cut the budget on learning. I might decide not to train my people, but what if they don't go and they stay? So, I mean, as a learning organization, we're continuously trying to evolve, trying to transform our people, processes, and systems. And that drives what we do along each of these pillars. That is why we are huge on learning, because we're constantly trying to stay relevant in the industry. And you would agree with me that the world is also changing, and so are the rules of success. I mean, what success we had and what kind of work we had 10 years ago is not what is prevalent in the times we are in now. A lot of trends and evolution are reshaping the organizations, and to stay relevant, you just need to keep learning. For me, this is simply what a learning organization is. And I don't want to delve, maybe we've not started having the conversation, the real conversation, so I don't want to delve into the trends, workforce trends, and evolution, but it's always important, and that's why I define, learning and where my logic starts from. When I look at what is happening in the global workforce and how the workforce has evolved over the years, I mean, you will see that the very resilient organizations, those that are able to adapt to change, adaptability to a huge extent has to do with learning. So those that have been learning over time are easily able to evolve through the changing times. When I look at the technology trends, I look at the things that have shaped the workforce, I see that people that have not continuously learned, they become, obsolete. So it's not just about the strongest. The world of work is becoming boundaryless. A lot of things have been broken down. We're not defined by the jobs we do anymore. Skills are very prevalent. When I hire for skills. When I train for skills. Now, the workplace in the last few years is not defined by a particular location. We have quite a lot of modes of working. People do a lot of hybrid. Many important workers aren't, the traditional workers. We have people, I mean, the GIG system is in place, is in vogue, is work in our workplace. And then you find out that, look, leadership is also not defined by organizational structure. A lot of things have changed. So, the world of work is defined by work, the workplace, and the worker. And the only distinct thing around these three pillars is learning, is knowledge. What you have, what you learned, that would enable you drive, the organization. Your ability to learn, to relearn, and unlearn. That is, for me, what a learning organization is. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a mouthful, but I also picked a lot of things as you went along. The fact that, what if you train them and they stay, and your organization just gets stuck in the past, stays obsolete, and people are learning, expanding, growing, thriving because they are learning from their mistakes and they are growing. So yes, I really love that analogy that you gave. So over to you, Dr. Jibewa. Let us hear what a learning organization means to you.
Thank you so much. And I think Madam Izeni has actually thrown more light into what learning organization is. Mine just to maybe add my own view to what she has contributed. In the world of today, things are changing very fast. Yesterday is not today. Previous years are not this year, and this year is not years to come. Then the question is, how do we remain competitive as an organization? And as an individual, how do you remain relevant? The only way to this is learning. And when we're not talking of learning organization, we are talking of an organization that embraces a culture of continuous learning as an organization made up people who are ready to acquire new knowledge, new skill, that are also watching the trends in the global work and the workplace to adapt and to adjust in order to continue to excel. Any organization that is not learning, either learning from what competitors are doing, acquire new ways of doing the things, and they're changing along technology, will definitely be out of markets and will be overtaken by competitors. In summary, a learning organization is an organization that facilitates the culture of continuous learning, acquisition of knowledge, and also changing as the world is changing, and also give rooms for employees to acquire new skills and to apply such new skills, which will drive creativity and innovation, and invariably will lead to a greater performance and better performance in the marketplace. And it also involved the ability of an organization to accept failure and learn from failure to move ahead. Thank you.
Okay, I particularly like that last line where you said learn from failure. A lot of organizations do not like failure and they see it as a negative thing rather than look at it as a source of where they should learn from. In addition to the competition that you mentioned, where people need to look at their trends, need to look at the competition, and also need to look at the technology to be able to stay ahead. So I'll send my next question to Madam Ezinne, and this will be around when you were speaking, you have this line you mentioned about the fact that when it's time to cut training, when it's time to cut budgets, what do we do away with? Everybody points to training, everybody points to learning, and they say, oh, we know what we know, we can just get along. Why do we have to spend money on getting something new when we already know what to do? So what do you say? So you already have a way to put that out where you say that, what if you don't train them and they stay and your organization just doesn't move forward? How would you convince an organization that wants to actively pick up this culture, where no matter what happens, training or learning doesn't take the cut and it is prioritized? So what would you say to those organizations who say things have changed, we need to stay competitive, the cost of doing business is quite high, at this moment we cannot afford to train our people? How do we embed that culture where learning doesn't always have to take the hits and the organization suffers in the long run? So if you had business leaders on this call who that is their normal setting, what would you say to them?
Okay, thank you very much. I would speak to the HR professionals in the learning arena first before I talk to the business heads, because if we have an understanding as HR professionals and how to position ourselves as value, as adding value to the organization, it's easy to give you a seat at the table. So that's what I always, that's my mantra to my colleagues. You don't need to ask for a seat at the table. When you add value, they actually set the seats ready for you and give you a seat. So I will start from the strategy of the business, because HR is an area that supports the business. When you support a business or you're in that area where you're not, and I'll use for the area or the sector I work in, financial services, I am not a profit center. I don't go out there to look for customers. So I have to do a little extra to show the organization I'm adding value. And how do I start that? It's from the business strategy, all right? Where I've tried to, over time, I've aligned my strategy, my HR strategy, my learning strategy to that of the business. That's the first selling point. For the business to understand, for you to achieve your strategic objective, you require my objective. You need me to align to support you. So they tend to see a lot of value in my offerings because they know that I speak the business language. So for us, and that is what I've done practically, I have learning advisors. So I don't have just learning and development staff. They act as advisors and consultants that sit with the businesses. You understand the business, you understand the strategy of the business, you understand the budget, you understand how the business makes money and what the business wants to achieve. That's the first point, because when you speak the language of the business, they are able to understand why they would align your offering to what they want to achieve. Now, that's the first level. For us also, I've tried to, align my training or align my learning approach to the basic rule, the 70-20-10 principle. All right. So for me, when I say learning or training or development, I don't mean going to classroom, because sometimes people miss that. Oh, I've not been trained. I see people say, I've not been trained this year. And by the time I sit down to articulate what you have done the whole year, I mean, you've received much training more than any other person. So what we actually do, I try to do a lot of focus on job experiential learning. And I try to articulate my strategy around it. So I don't take it for granted that people have done job shadowing. I don't take it for granted that people have done stints in other departments. And I deliberately, deploy people to go to other areas where I think their knowledge will add value to the business they're currently doing. So that helps me get aligned. So at the beginning of the year, I understand the business strategy. I'm able to articulate a learning strategy. So I'm working with the business, because sometimes we go into the business with thinking you can say it off your head. Business doesn't respect that. Remember, the business has a strategy. So I come with my learning strategy, and I try to align my learning strategy to what the business wants to achieve. So I speak their language to say, if you want to achieve 6 trillion, once upon a time, it was a strategy for a particular business. We want to achieve 6 trillion. I'm trying to align my learning strategy to tell you, this is what I need to do to enable you achieve the 6 trillion. I build my strategy around the employee life cycle to, to speak to, how do I hire the right kind of people? How do I develop and train the right kind of people? How do I retain the right kind of people? How do I manage the performance of the right kind of people to help you achieve that objective? So you see that is the approach. So people would not have any scruples making a huge invest annually, on learning, because I have a plan. I've decided, and that's what I naturally do. I devise a plan that will speak to each individual. So I'm not just looking at classroom training. This plan will involve classroom training. It would involve digital learning. I'm also very big on digital learning, where people, for me, my focus is to ensure people are self-paced when they're learning. These days, because the world of work has evolved, people are working digitally, people are hybrid. You don't need to force people down to learn in a particular day. So I pace it through the time so that people can learn. I have coaching, I have mentoring, I have job shadowing, I have job rotation, I have international assignments by virtue of the kind of organization I work for. So people can actually go away to other smaller countries in Africa, just to have the right kind of exposure. So you find out that when I speak this language and I have this offerings or strategy around what the business wants to achieve, it excites them. So I hear comments like, Ezine, I've not gone on training this year. They're the ones begging. And I can tell you that last year in December, when we're trying to finalize our annual budget, training budget, we had a lot of fights from line managers where they were fighting, please, this training budget you have assigned to me is too small. I can't deal. My IT will tell me, look, this is too small for IT. The kind of certification they have to go for. Business will tell me, please, this training budget is too small. So honestly, and for me, it's very exciting. And this is one subject I'm very, very passionate about, because over time, we've worked really hard to get business to accept learning as a part of, life, and it's part of what we do. So, I mean, I'm just an excited coach, an excited head of department that doesn't really need to struggle to, advance my learning course, because I go through those strategies to embed what I want to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you. I like the nuggets you shared there about when that's a very common question in HR, where people say, oh, I'm not going for training. And when you say training, what they mean, it has to be overseas training, it has to be some large, big budget training, and then they ignore the rest because you go and see the training records, and there are so many trainings, and you say, well, you have been trained. So I really like that you pointed that out. So I'll take my next question to Dr. Jibewa and say, based on the experience you have, both internally within a business, running HR across 6 countries, and then currently consulting from the 2 sides, so internally and externally from the organization. How are you able to incorporate client feedback into the trainings that are being sent to organizations? Because oftentimes we have this disparity, or we have this belief that, yes, consultants come to your organization, they review, and then they propose a training. And the question is, where are those training needs coming from? Are they what the organization needs, or are they just generic and it's to whom it may concern? So based on your experience from both sides within the organization and also consulting for other businesses, how would you say we find this balance where people that are consulting or organizations that are consulting are able to propose tailored learning needs to, or tailored learning solutions to the organization? I think that would be my question.
Thank you. So maybe let me start from the experience as an HR person for about 35 years, and also working across different countries. When you look at organizations, the first thing you need to consider, what is the purpose of that organization? What does the organization want to achieve, either in the short run or in the long term? And also you have cultural variation across countries. So such cultural variations, you also need to look at it so that you know the right way to entrench learning across the organization. Because oftentimes you have challenges of maybe balancing what you are proposing to work across the group. And such challenges comes from the fact that the perception differs, the cultural differences are factors that must be considered. So at times you have to look at a way to come up with a strategy that be acceptable across the countries, and also some you have to just internalize, localize for that particular environment. So when you come to determining the kind of training, that takes us the way of looking at the training needs analysis. And the first point of view, just to connect to what Madam Zene has mentioned, is to look at the business strategy. What is the business strategy say? That analysis will give you insight into how HR will come into play. Remember that HR is just a strategic business partner. You have to assist the business to achieve those objectives. So the first understanding that HR person should have is to have a good understanding of the business itself. And when you have that understanding, you know how to analyze what are the gaps, what are the shortfalls that need to be addressed for the business to acquire and to achieve such objectives. And that will guide the kind of learning intervention or initiatives that you bring on board. And that also will connect to what is the business environment talking about? How does it impact the business? And that will give you insight to what kind of knowledge or training or learning should we require for people to deliver towards achieving the objectives of the company in line with the need of the environment or the demands of the environment. Then now coming to the consultancy aspect. Usually the approach I adopt over the years is to look at diagnosis of the organization, which I run together with the stakeholders. Let's look at the organization. What are the issues? What are the priorities? What are the objectives? Over 5 years, what has been the trend of performance of some individuals? What have you observed, maybe in the area of behavior? Because it's one thing to acquire knowledge, to have the skill. It's another thing to have the right attitude to demonstrate or utilize such skills or knowledge. What kind of environment, business environment do you want to create that will enable people to actually utilize their potential or to tap into their potentials? So doing that analysis will give you insight of particular needs, training needs of an organization. And that will now tailor your training agenda towards achieving that for the organization. And this differs across organizations. Some are generic, but even in coming up with a training that will meet the need of an organization, you also need to see the best way to make the generic trainings to be applicable and they actually make the right impact to a particular organization. I think I have to stop here for now. Thank you.
Thank you for both the organizations and for those who are also providing learning solutions. I think I see, based on your response, the same approach basically, because both of them have to pay attention to what the gaps are and then ensure that they are filling those gaps rather than just ticking a box that, oh, we've trained for the year, we've done this, we've done that. And at the end of the day, it's not impactful to the business. It cannot be measured. And there's no relevant change that has been seen in how the organization was in the last training cycle and what it currently is. So thank you for that response. I will direct my next question again back to Madam Izine. And this is coming from what we envisage as traditional learning. We say traditional learning is almost being phased out, and some people hold on to those things. I just mentioned it. If that training does not have ESTA code in it, I'm not interested. Don't send me. If that training is not physical, don't send me. I'm not interested. If that training is 15 minutes, what is the meaning of this? So based on the fact that those traditional training methods are being reviewed, organizations are going, targeting micro-practice, targeting other forms of learning. Like you said, there's coaching, there's mentoring, there is job rotations, right? Having people use their skills in other areas that benefit the business. Because yes, as HR, we employ people for this particular role and that fits. But we just noticed that beyond that particular role they are sitting on, there's so much knowledge that they have that they can also give to other areas of the business. And it's really good to acknowledge that. So based on this background and this context, my question then would be, how will organizations imbibe that culture of transitioning from traditional learning methods to methods that cut across the life cycle of the business, align with its strategic goals, and also look towards the future in terms of what training is transitioning into, what training is about to become, or what training has become, because training like we know it is not what it used to be. So I hope the question was not too lengthy, but I was just trying to paint a picture of where we currently are, what traditional trainings are, and how our employees should start getting ready for the future of learning.
Okay, thank you very much, Pamela, and thank you for that question, because I like the questions particularly so far. I don't know if I like the next because these questions, some of the questions are what we have practically gone through. Were this easy? Absolutely not. And I think, during COVID, a lot of people, I saw a lot of questions on the internet, who drives change in the organization? And the answer was like COVID drove change in a lot of organizations. So some people didn't want to actually shift until COVID came and taught us a lot of things that we could actually do hybrid, or we could, I know that a lot of people are coming back to the workspace. But thankfully for that, and I told people that we actually started, and in my organization, we actually started some practices even before COVID came, so we could do virtual meetings. Of course, we had a lot of traveling, we had a lot of classroom interventions, but we also had a little bit of, virtual meetings and virtual sessions. But COVID actually, helped us adapt, a whole lot. And to respond to your question, I'm going to speak on what I called, initially my introduction, I talked about the transformed or evolved workplace, which we call, we've always talked about the future of work. And I tell people that we don't have the future of work. That future we've spoken about or we're speaking about is right here. And a lot of things are happening to show that the world is changing. Skills are, they're required skills that would, even you as an individual, you realize you're obsolete. When we talk about technology skills, I would have my PA do years ago, I am also trying to learn them or do them. Otherwise, you realize that you're out of, scope. You go for board meetings and board members are requiring analytics, some have high level of analytics. You even inform yourself that, look, you need to be able to understand how to analyze information and how to make decisions from that analytics. Otherwise, you'll be obsolete, you'll be out of scope. And one thing I introduced, which I summarized, as part of my, focus or reform in the workplace, is the ideal work, the ideal workplace, and the ideal worker. And I said all these are defined by knowledge, because learning, growth, and evolution has happened. It has twisted or changed the way we look at these different places. And I'll start from the ideal worker, just to show you that this change has helped. These changes happening has also helped in how we think and how we reason. Even the worker himself understands that, look, I have to learn so much. So I might not be, I have to learn on the go as well. So ideal worker is relevant if you're versatile and if you're highly skilled. So when I hire people, even as a head of people and culture, HR, I don't hire for particular skills. I hire for versatility. How many transferable skills do you have? So I'm looking, when I'm interviewing people, I'm asking questions that is related to 2 different skills. So I wouldn't want you to come into the workplace and there's only one thing you can do. So you realize that the worker is personally trying to transform himself. And the environment I work in, I see a lot of people do certifications that I don't pay for. I have a very large platform for virtual learnings. And if I tell you the utilization on that virtual learning, you'll be amazed. And sometimes I even ask myself, when are all these people learning this? And I'm here doing head of HR, where people are, equipping themselves. So the ideal worker is challenging himself to do a lot of creative work. The workforce is transversing a new landscape. The traditional boundaries, like you said, we're losing out and things are no more packaged. People are applying for jobs in Canada. People are applying for jobs in US. How do you compete, favorably in a global landscape if you're not developed? Like I said before, we're in a GIG economy where there's free market system, there's short commitments. I checked the chat room, somebody talked about different generations. We have 3 generations in the workplace. So I've tried to build a learning plan that speaks to everybody cannot go to classroom. And so we try to, adapt diverse means and different learning styles to make people happy and to make them, align to our learning. So sometimes, last year, through the years, people try to improve. I tell people that at least you do 1 classroom training each year. People are satisfied because, during COVID, nobody went to classroom. People were just doing online. We're still learning, but you must learn is online. So I tell people that at least you go to 1 classroom training, they're happy. But for me, it's compulsory. You must also achieve the other models of the other forms of learning. All right, so like I said, the ideal worker is trying to improve himself. Traditional learning modes are not effective anymore. I want to get to my house. I have a license for LinkedIn Learning, which I've given freely to my employees. And people want to go home on weekends when they're not doing anything, they want to learn. So I see people learn to send me certificates. I just completed my LinkedIn Learning. That's what the ideal worker, that's what they want to do. Learn on the go, self-paced. Nobody's rushing me. I finish at the time I want to finish. And now what's the ideal workplace? It's no more a physical site. And you agree with me that people don't want to come to the office. People want to do hybrid. I want to come 2 days in, 3 days out. How do you want to do the classroom learning? So you see that people are even a lot more aligned to, virtual learning. So I want to learn from home. And I've made it a lot more appealing to people. Any day you have a virtual learning that is more than 5 hours, do it from a remote place, anywhere you want to. So those are the little incentives we add to people to get them to adopt learning. So if you're doing a virtual learning, I tell them if it's more than 5 hours, please don't come to the office. Get approval and do it remotely. So people want to do as many virtual learnings. It's not like you will not do your work. You do 5 hours and then continue your work. But, for the fact that they're working remotely, they want to adopt that. And then the ideal work, like I said, I've talked about the ideal workplace where we have broken boundaries on, rigidity. The physical environment is the emphasized. People want to do digital, they want to do hybrid, and that would help them advance their learning and growth. And then the ideal work itself, and there's not much emphasis on the ideal work. There's a lot of emphasis on skills. What do you, when people are applying for jobs, they're telling you I have analytical skills, I have skills in artificial intelligence, I have skills in different skills, really. So you find out that the emphasis on the ideal work also speaks to learning. So I want to learn, I was looking at a job profile, because I usually get job profiles, every now and then. I was looking at a job profile and what they were asking for. And they were asking for head of HR, job with deep skills, analytical skills. And I told myself, this is becoming is required skills. So if you're head of HR, you can analyze data, it is a problem. So, but if you can analyze data, is a competitive advantage. So the ideal work itself has also changed over time. So people are attracted, people are eager to do that. So whilst we put all of this together, when we are selling it to the businesses and the employees in the organization, we're selling a model that speaks to their personal development plan. So at the beginning of the year, like right now, we are driving the personal development plan of every employee. Every one of them, every employee in my organization has a PDP, including myself. And it speaks to everything you want to achieve, all your learning in one full scope. So you have your classroom, you have leadership, you have virtual, digital learnings, you have future ready, what we call future ready. And future ready speaks to, future skills. Future ready speaks to all the AI related skills, all the data and analytics kind of skills. We have also learning related to that. And once we have it in a full scope, people will say what is written is, well, people are aligned to what you have written. Everybody is proud to have a personal development plan, and that's what we track and work with the rest of the year. I hope I've not spoken so much that I've lost track of your question. I hope I was able to put it all together. Thank you.
So we love
Let me
that.
crack a joke. Let me crack a joke. My
Okay,
CEO will
okay.
say, if you want to get into trouble, just give us in the microphone. You just be in big trouble. So I apologize up front. You gave me the microphone.
No. So you have in the chat box, I think Oluchi says, please, you are spot on, Ma. So please, if you know that this learning is impactful so far, I want to see your emojis, your comments, your shot. I just want to see those asking for attendance. Let's finish learning before we talk about attendance. So please, I want to see activity in the chat box. I want to see your emojis. I want to see your comments, talking about what you're learning from the room. When you mentioned the fact, when you said ideal worker, ideal work, workplace, and ideal work. And you mentioned the fact that employees these days, they want to learn for days rather than spend their weekends doing something, watching movies or something. They just want to learn. Let me also share, this is not a joke, it's reality. I recently put out a mail and said, oh, if there's any learning that we haven't captured in the last quarter, please kindly send it in. And I saw the response of an employee, and I called the person, I said, please come, please, I think you need therapy at this point. Are you telling me that you did so number of trainings, about 30 something trainings in a space of this? And they said yes. And they said they have a training target of 20 certifications every month. And yes, it was a joke, but it speaks to the fact that people realize that they need to learn to stay on top. They need to learn to stay competitive, and it is no longer business as usual to just be an employee and know that one thing that you know. I learned this in 1955, and I want to remain like that for the rest of my life. So yes, it has changed the ideal worker, the ideal work, and the ideal workplace. Thank you so much for sharing. I will then go over to Doctor once again, and I want you to just share with us, what are your winning strategies? What are your winning strategies for an organization to be to be a learning organization, right? So how do you lead a learning organization? What are your strategies that you would say, these things I'm sharing with you, go and do it and come back and give us testimony in the next 1 year, in the next 6 months. We want to hear what your winning strategy is about leading a learning organization.
Thank you so much. Leading a learning organization is not an easy thing to achieve, but there are ways you can go about achieving that. The first thing is to look at the leadership, get the leadership buy-in, let them see the need for learning. Just as some of things we have mentioned here, that if you don't learn and your people refuse to learn, then your performance will be affected. You are going to lose your market share. And as an HR person, you can have data to back up your presentation. HR metrics analytics is very crucial nowadays for an HR person. And that's why most HR people are challenged when they are presenting budgets for learning. Because business owners that have strong financial acumen, they want to see the plus and minus. They want to see what translates, what you are presenting translate to in naira and kobo, and what are the figures, not just stories. So nowadays, you have to speak more through HR metrics and analytics. And that will convince the leadership, because these are set tones. If you don't get their buy-in, one, you are likely to lack resources to achieve it. Part of what they will tell you that learning is a waste of money. They can't see the impact. You must also come up with the metrics to measure the impact of learning. Part of one simple approach you can adopt, if it's possible, to measure where individuals are before the learning intervention. Then after about maybe a period of time, maybe 6 months upward, you can revisit the assessment and see whether there's improvement. And you can also align that to the organizational performance to see whether the learning is actually having an impact or not. If you succeed in getting the buy-in of leaders and they are ready to lead by example, then the job to translating or transforming your organization to a learning organization will be very, 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 very easy. Then part of the strategy I adopted when I was still in the real business, none other than talking to people, although I also have my own business that I also manage, is also to link your learning to performance management system. Link it to performance, that will give commitment to learning. Let it be part of what people account for when it's come to evaluating performance. Both that will help even the leaders who are not ready or willing to allow their subordinates to acquire new skills. Because some will say, oh, whether it's online learning or physical learning, the question is that, oh, the job will suffer. But they should see the need for it and let it be part of their own accountability. They will be the first driver of learning in their session, their units, because they are going to account for the learning, their own personal learning, and the learning of their subordinates. So that's another strategy. Then another one is to involve knowledge sharing scheme, create a platform where people can share knowledge. Share knowledge not just about failure, but also knowledge about success. So when you share that, that will improve the commitment to learning, and that will ensure continuous learning. Let people learn from people that are successful. For instance, when we do analysis of our business, some years we pick a country where the managing director of that subsidiary is doing very, very well, and we throw it up on a session. Come and tell us what you have done to achieve the outcome we are seeing. And other managing directors and regional directors of other locations build from it. And also, average of quarterly, we have a forum where employees gather together and give us the highlights of what you have done to impart knowledge, what you have done, initiative you have taken to transform your business performance, and people also ask questions in such forums. And if an employee also go for any training, even whether physical, wherever it is, they come back to share that knowledge with their colleagues across departments and across location. Also, to entrench learning, we also have what we call project committees. We set up project committees, project teams. Some individuals are part of that team just to share their knowledge and expertise with others. At times you have some, like when we wanted to introduce a software in HR, part of what I recommended is that I want the head of ICT to be part of it, which is a must anyway. I want people in marketing to be part of it. I want people in finance to be part of it, part of the project committee, so that they can, the way, and what we saw that the way we are seeing things in HR is not the way they are seeing things. And that creates the outcome. And that's also promote the buy-in and acceptance of the learning intervention. Also, we also involve in cultural intervention. As I mentioned, some of the countries that we do business, the company I worked last with operates actually in 50 African countries where they do businesses, but physical presence in 6 countries, 3 French-speaking, 3 English-speaking. Part of the challenge that most French-speaking, they can speak English language. But most of us in the English-speaking, we cannot speak French language. So part of learning that we introduce is to help people to register for French learning. This is a must. Initially, we try it in the workplace, having lectures maybe from 4 o'clock, but it failed. Because the excuse people give is that, oh, I have a deadline, oh, I can't join today. So because of that, at the time we shifted from the office, we got a facility close to the office, to the head office, and same thing we do in other locations. But most times, initially, people are turning up, but after a while, class of 10, you see only 3. So we stopped it. We progress on that. We say, okay, people should register with the French study schools, like Alliance Française, that we're able to achieve a bit. Then we back with online language learning. And at regular interval, maybe average of a quarter, we test people on the language scale. And that also helps us to blend across our locations. And when you're also recruiting, we also, especially for French speaking, we look for bilinguals. You don't necessarily need to speak French English, but we give you opportunity also to go to English language classes. And that also encourages us to be bonded together. And people embrace training than before. Then also, we also create room for feedback. People usually give us feedback about their training experience, and that also helps us to adjust our strategy and also to see the best way to go ahead. And we also encourage people to belong to professional bodies. We have maximum of 3 professional bodies for people to join, which is fully funded by the company. Then for progression on the job, for some critical roles that we know for certification, we made a must that you must get that certification before you can get to a particular level in the organization. And it's fully funded by the company. But the question you're likely to ask that, what if I did just attending for attending sake and the company is just losing money? What we do is that the first attempt, the company bears it 100%, the cost. Second attempt, we pay only 50% of the cost. Third attempt, you're on your own. And when it comes to evaluation for your moving to the next level, it will be part of the assessment. And that encourages people to actually commit themselves to learning, and the organization is growing fast, and also learn, and at times also partner with other organizations so that they can share experience together and see how things are done and where we need to have some improvements. Thank you.
At this point, I think I want to build a house, one for me, one for Madam Ezine, and one for Dr. Olusegun Ajibowa, and we are not going to leave this training session today. Thank you so much. You touched on, I had questions I wanted to ask, but as you were responding, I was picking things. HR people get that buy-in. Once you get the buy-in, convince your stakeholders. And once your stakeholders are courageous enough to lead by example, without management commitment, it's really difficult to make it happen. Without management commitment, learning cannot happen. And so just having stakeholders sign up, sign in, lead by example, and put in these strategies. My paper is full, I can show you. I have different options, it's full, and I know everybody's doing the same. Sharing success stories, sharing challenges, that knowledge transfer. A lot of times, oftentimes, people don't share knowledge because some people believe if I tell these people what I know, then I am no longer relevant. Then they will no longer call me when they have issues. But imagine that everybody had the mindset that what we know together collectively is more valuable than what I know personally and individually. We throw it into our knowledge box, we mix it together, and then we help each other. That way is the best way to ensure that we enshrine that culture of learning within our organizations. Thank you so much, sir. Because of our time, I'll let Madam Ezine just give us just a wrap up, right? If there's anything we've left out, just give us a wrap up, because I know that we have questions that we need to take from audiences in the room. So is there anything you left out you'd like us to speak about? Let's hear you say it. With that wrap up, I will take one also from Doctor, and then we'll just take our questions immediately. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. It's been such an interesting session, but I'd just like to drop would I call it nugget, but something that has helped me through. I actually started my career in HR in the learning and development space, and I tell people that space actually honed my skills. I mean, I became a certified trainer in L&D, and I think it's been one of my most interesting, really, and very beneficial roles in people and culture. Every role has been good. And I think what helped me become very strategic in learning was the Kirkpatrick's model of training evaluation. I think it helped me because it speaks to the end-to-end strategy in learning. I mean, right from identifying the training needs to return on investments. And that is what helps you sell your strategy. Once you come fully abreast of business, identify training needs that is aligned to strategy, there's no way you won't get buy-in. And I tell people, and that is my mantra to my learning team, never rest when you send people. Your work hasn't been completed when you send people on training. I mandate them before I go back to the board to talk about my training budget, to talk about my bursary budget, because I have a bursary budget as well. And I want to go back to the board to tell them how much value I've derived in people, learning. So my analytics is to the barest minimum. I even talk about the highest spenders. I bring it to light because when you draw those analytics, they know you're paying attention to learning. So I tell the organization, these are the heavy spenders in 2024. And then we're asking the heavy spenders, please, how have you utilized knowledge? I send you to Harvard, please, what did you learn? How many people have you impacted? So you see that when you have these strategies in place, accountability is not a problem. It keeps everybody true to himself. So even the learner, the person approving the budget is accountable. The person sending you on training is accountable. The person even learning is accountable. And I tell you that sometimes I send people on expensive trainings, they quarrel. They start arguing with me that why am I going off this training? Because by the time I list out the accountability, path or pillar, people get frightened. Look, can I be able to deliver on this? I think that's my closing shot, in presentation. And I tell people something that's also guided me, but this one is from childhood. And it's something I read off a book. I can't remember how I learned it, but it's something I've always told myself. If you're tired of learning, you're tired of living, honestly. Because, once you stop learning, that means you're dead. Brain dead, body dead, everything dead. You can't advance. So I tell people, just keep learning. Just keep learning. I do that on Saturdays. People tell me, you keep awake on Saturday nights. What do you do? What are you doing on the internet? I said, that's when I read everything I want to read in life. I just keep reading. I just open Google. Is your friend? That's what they said. And I start reading, and I tell people, maximize every opportunity you have. I don't miss an opportunity, whether it's learning or whether it's talking to my colleagues, junior, senior. There's nobody that doesn't treat. Ask them in my department. Everybody teaches me. Even if you're a junior staff, you copy chair beside me, please, I want to learn this. I tell people that's the only way you can grow in an organization. I learned that, I was, as a junior staff, I was never shy of opportunities because it was one good way of learning. People will tell you then, Ezine will do everything and anything, just bring it on. Once there's an opportunity to learn, I tell them whether I can do it or not, I say, I want to do it because it gives me. So please don't be tired of learning as an individual. And as a practitioner, just go and Google, if you're not familiar with it, go and Google Kirkpatrick. It will just tell you, training models, from analysis, and it gives you a full view of how to be a strategic learning partner or advisor. Thank you.
Thank you. All I can say is from the comment section, someone said, fire on, Ma. So just fire on. If you are not learning, you're not growing. If you're not learning, then what are you here to do in this universe? Learn from everything, learn from everyone, learn from every situation. Thank you so much. Over to you, Doctor. Let us hear your final thoughts on any other thing you'd like us to learn before we leave this room.
Thank you. I will start from saying learning is continuous. You stop learning when you are dead. Because every day, there are new things. Every day, there are new things. That means every time you must learn. Otherwise, you'll be left behind. And for HR colleagues, please be a defender of learning. Don't shy away from presenting your learning, your training and development budgets. All you need to do is to equip yourself on how to justify it. Because businesses, because of maybe economic challenges, part of what some business target is the learning budget. Let's cut it down. Nobody is going for any training. I believe that because of ignorance. Because people that doesn't have the right knowledge, they can't solve your problem. People that doesn't have the right skill, they can navigate your company or your organization through difficult periods. So make a good case for people to still learn during economic challenges. It's not necessarily they need to travel, because I'm not a strong advocate of traveling for training nowadays because of what I've seen in many spaces. There have been many occasions that I travel abroad, even to facilitate in some cases. And some of the people that attended the program, they appear the first day. Then the next time we see them is when they are to award certificates. What they went for is just shopping. So there are other ways to learn nowadays, which are not that costly, and there are a lot of learning tools. Like Moodle, you can adopt Moodle. It's a learning platform. We have Workday, it's a learning platform. You have Udemy and several others that I will encourage you to introduce your organization. Even LinkedIn Learning is also there. And there are free courses that people can also embrace and let it be incorporated into your learning agenda or the learning strategy. If you have that in place, that will help a lot. Then also study or learn how to manage stakeholders, decision makers to support your learning agenda. Learning is just like a change. People resist learning. I've seen this one where a top person was sent to a business school for learning. And when he returned back, the only reports that everybody knows about is going to the school is that their food was very good. The food was very good. Nothing meaningful. So when you have people who come back without any meaningful outcome, I encourage you to get a mentor for them, coach them, counsel them, especially
Okay, I see that his screen is frozen. While we wait for him to get back in, I'd just like to reiterate something he said, where he said, people without the right skills can't solve your problem. And HR practitioners should learn how equip themselves with how to justify those trainings. It's your job to defend it. It's your job to show them what they are missing if they are not able to, if they refuse to approve those budgets just because you are not able to justify it. So your job is to justify it, become an avenger, become a defender, and make it happen. And learn how to carry your stakeholders along. If you understand the business.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, he's back in. All right.
Sorry for the internet issues.
Yes, please go ahead.
So
Sir.
as I'm rounding up, that also let there be a structure that is decentralized, that also encourage learning. The higher the hierarchy, the more difficult for you to have an open communication that will encourage learning, also encourage teamwork a lot. Through team interaction, people learn a lot. Also, people that are not ready to share knowledge, find a way. If you need to put it as part of their KPI, let it be there so that they can't hold the knowledge just to themselves, let the knowledge be shared. And if we can do that together, then the organization will continue to progress and won't go to extinction. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, sir. People resist learning, but we have to find creative ways around it. And if you don't, and people without the right skill can't solve your problem. And so you always have to ensure that you have your stakeholders aligned in what you're trying to achieve. Thank you so much, sir. We'll go quickly to our questions. I have a few questions in the chat box. Please note, I will be asking questions that are related to the topic, leading the learning organization, because we cannot take all our questions here. So please, if you are here and you can reply to the chat in terms of questions that are not related to this topic, please assist our brethren and sisters in the room. I would be taking this particular question here. Let me see, scroll up a bit. Please confirm if you'd like to ask a question. I'll let you unmute yourself and speak. Someone asks that, okay, so this is more related to conducting interviews. So please, I'll skip that. Give me a moment. Just give me a moment. Okay, so you mentioned, okay, hold on. Let me see if this is a better question, not related to the topic. Okay, so you mentioned options in terms of platforms that people explore, platforms that people can go and get trainings, or platforms that people can use, right? And so the question is, what other digital tools can be leveraged? What other digital tools can be leveraged to just enhance learning or just build that culture of promoting a learning organization? What digital tools can we explore to be able to ensure that our people are kept on their toes, are also kept given the right trainings and skills that they need to stay on the job? So I'll send this question to Madam Izine. I'll send this question to Madam Izine.
Okay, thank you very much. And there are quite a number of them, honestly, and some of them you pay for, like LinkedIn. And because I work for the organization I work for, we have access to quite a lot of digital platforms or virtual platforms to learn. All right, you have the Abstract, which I get a daily update on every day. I get LinkedIn Learning, and sometimes when you don't learn, they will send you things they think. And, for us in the organization, we've profiled it that when you check a particular subject, LinkedIn will start sending you that subject to go and learn. So for people that are heading up learning spaces, it's actually very helpful. The organization has a license on Salesforce. So we have access to over 20 million, different topics on future ready and digital topics that people can actually learn for. And at the time in the organization, I think it was during COVID, we made it mandatory for all employees to be certified. So every employee had to do a certain number of hours on Salesforce to be certified. But I tell people, for those that don't have money to go on EBSCO, to go on Abstract, to do LinkedIn Learning, to go on Degree or Network Next, I tell people as a student and as a postgraduate student in the United Kingdom, of course, I didn't have money to do, the school provided some platforms, but I didn't have a lot of money to do some other platforms. And I went on Google Scholar. I don't think a lot of us are familiar with Google Scholar. There's Google, so if I want to read anything, I don't go to Google, because Google is garbage in, garbage out. There's nobody that does, it's like YouTube. Everybody does picture and you put there. It's like TikTok. But as a student, I used to go to Google Scholar, because that's where you have the profiled scholarly articles, so those things that may have been posted by learned people or researchers, you see them on Google Scholar. So please, if you want to get any meaningful write-up, and that's where I used to go to read articles, because to an extent, I know Google would have profiled the articles they put on Google Scholar. So this message, this Google Scholar is for those that don't have the, financial wherewithal to do a lot of research, because when you go on LinkedIn, they can give you free learnings, but in some areas, you have to pay for you to continue or to get certified. So you can do quite a lot of Google Scholar. But I tell people, please spend money on yourself. Don't buy that bone straight. Don't buy that wig. Don't buy that shoe. Please do one development every day. I've saved money to send myself abroad to train. It wasn't the organization. I wanted to do one of the conferences, one of the big shrimp conferences. And it was a dream, because I knew it was going to bring a lot of professionals. I saved money to go and do it. So I tell people, it will cost you, some personal sacrifice, but develop yourself. Even when I tell my employees here, and I tell, we have these things available, but it's one learning you take away for yourself. It's not for the organization. It's for yourself. So the day you leave, you're going away with your knowledge. And sometimes when people are so knowledgeable, we beg people to stay. I tell them, when people are knowledgeable, I seek them. I want to hire you. I'm begging you to be hired. And when you say you want to leave, I'm begging you to stay. So you see what learning does to an individual by himself. So I guess pretty much that's what it is, Thank you.
Thank you. We are just right on the mark of leaving the door, but I'm trying to hold them not to leave. So one more question for Doctor. Someone has a question here, and the question was, how can this strategy, I believe this was posted when we were listing out the strategies that are best practice or some things you have done in your career that could help. And the question is that, how can all these strategies work in construction where you only communicate with the other staff virtually, because they are on different sites and locations? So I think they're trying to find what works for people that have to manage their employees virtually and they are not in the same physical space. If you can just give us one-liner response to help this person. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I don't see it to be a serious challenge because virtually everyone has access to a means of communication, especially telephone handsets. And most times they have maybe access to the internet. So communicating to them remotely or virtually won't be an issue. But if we are a learning organization and you want to promote it, if you see it as a challenge, maybe because of internet for some people, because I don't know the level. I know in construction company, we have a lot of people that are junior level or even casuals, which may also want to impart some knowledge on. Then the organization can also support with little internet provisions that will enable them to have access to learning. But the primary thing is to ensure that you are still communicating to them. Don't take for granted that, oh, because they are in a remote place, they cannot learn. They have access to learning. I don't see much difference between your physical presence and your communicating virtually to them. What is important is what is the content of what you want to pass across to them, and then you look at the context to align with what will suit them at a particular time. That would be my response. I don't know whether I answered that question as expected.
Yes, that was quite helpful. Thank you so much. I believe we all had an exciting time in this HR Roundtable organized by Rome Business School. I would like to just leave us with this thought that as we lead our organizations forward, we shouldn't just build workplaces. We should build learning ecosystems where learning is constant, growth is constant, innovation is our second nature, and adaptability is our greatest strength. As earlier mentioned, if we do not learn, we do not grow. If we are no longer learning, then it's obvious that we are no longer playing in this current space. And so the future belongs to those who never stop learning. We should encourage and have the courage to push our organizations to build that culture of learning, to build that culture of growth, and that culture of resilience. And I'll leave you with a quote from Peter Senge. And the quote states, "The only sustainable competitive advantage is an organization's ability to learn faster than their competition." On that note, I'll hand us over to Mr. Victor Asenyi to take the closing remarks. Thank you so much. It was an amazing time I had having or moderating this HR Roundtable, and thank you to both our panelists and the organizers. Thank you, and over to you, Mr. Victor.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pamela. Thank you very much, Mrs. Ezine. Thank you very much, Dr. Olusegun, for your thoughts. Thank you so much for your expertise, knowledge, and information that you have shared with us. Once again, thank you very much, our participants, all 400 of you. We are very sorry for the delay. We had technical glitch, but I'm sure you enjoyed yourself. I'm sure you enjoyed the session. I'm sure it's been very impactful. So this is one of the value-added services that our BSN brings to your table, and our admissions will be closing soon. For those of you that are yet to be part of the RBSN community, do well to visit our website and fill the form. Some of our colleagues will reach out to you and get you on board to the RBSN community. For most of you that would like to continue this conversation online, do well to follow Ms. Pamela Elekwachi on LinkedIn. Also follow Dr. Olusegun on LinkedIn, and also Mrs. Ezine Anosike on LinkedIn. You can continue the conversation over there. We are aware this recording, that this session is being recorded and being live streamed. For some of us that would like the recording for future read, I would suggest you fill the attendance survey form. The link has been posted, and the link will continue to be posted till 4:40 p.m. by the time I close this session. But for now, have a lovely evening, and thank you once again for joining us. Thank you, Ma. Thank you, Saz. Thank you, Maz, and thank you, Sir, for your time.
Thank you, everyone. Madam Esene, thank you so much. Pastor Pamela, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, Pamela.
Madam, I'm getting in touch with you on LinkedIn.
Fantastic, yes.
And there also
you.
I've learned so
Pamela
much.
too.
I'll post everyone's LinkedIn profile so that audience can easily find everyone. So I'll try to do that right
Thank
now.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
It was
Thank
a
you.
very enjoyable conversation. Thank you so much.
You. And I thoroughly enjoyed myself as well. Have a good evening.
Yes, you too. Thank you.
Session.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.